Hey, what is up, everybody? My name is Chandler Gunther, and this is my adolescent literature autobiography project. I'm going to give it to you in a PowerPoint/video thing. Here we go. So, I figured the best way to start this thing was just to give you a little overview of what my life was like as an adolescent. And one of the main things you gotta know about me, I guess, is that I moved a lot during my childhood school years. So I got Google Earth up here, and so let's just take a little trip, shall we? So 4th grade, when I was 9, I went to Central Elementary School here in Lexington. And 5th grade, I didn't move too far away. I just went over to Eastern Elementary. But continuing on, my parents worked for a international school system. So moving into 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, I actually lived in Zhuhai, China at an international school they have here. They actually changed with the campuses, and I wasn't at this specific building, but this is pretty much where I was. Then after those 3 years of middle school, I moved back to the States, but not back to Ohio, unfortunately. Moved to the good old state of North Dakota. North Dakota for my first 2 years of high school when I was 14 and 15 years old. And so these are the years that I'm talking about throughout the rest of this presentation is going to be about this. So now that you know that, I guess I'll talk a little bit about what my personality was like as an adolescent. So I already mentioned that I moved around a bunch, so but that didn't mean that I had trouble fitting in. I was a pretty happy-go-lucky individual. I got along with all my classmates because, like, you know, you kind of have to when you're moving around like that. You got to be able to make friends quick and stuff like that. But I took school very seriously. Both my parents are teachers. My dad's a literature teacher. My mom's a 3rd grade teacher. And so partly due to them, but also just in general, I do take school seriously. I think it's a useful use of your time, I guess. And also I participated in a lot of sports. Yeah, so I was very active, got around. Alright, so the last part of this little mini segment here is what I did in my free time as a kid. So I went to school, obviously, but when I wasn't at school, I would usually either be outside exploring by myself with my friends or with my brothers, or a combination of that. Like on my bike, going for walks. I rollerbladed a lot. I'd go hiking sometimes, and just explore the city. Zhuhai was especially fun because it was this bigger city that I could go just run around and explore in. Also, family time was pretty important with us. We usually do something with the family, like a movie or a game or something like that, dinner. This is also when I developed my interest in computers. I played Minecraft and started doing, like, I was really into that, and I started coding through that and got really into computers because of it. And also, this is when social media made its debut. That's when I got Instagram. Like, I think that was the first social media I got, and I was all over that stuff too. Now, not so much. I'm kind of getting sick of social media, honestly. But anyway, and of course, the other last thing I would do would be reading books, and that's going to bring us to our next section, which is alright, so this next segment of stuff I'm calling my memories of reading, because it's all about specific memories that relate to reading. So the first part is where the magic happened. Otherwise, where would I read? There was really only 2 spots that I would read. It was either at night in my bed, I'd have my headlight on, and I'd be sitting there forever, and I would read until I got tired and then keep reading. I remember having like neck cranks and dry eyes like almost every night. And then the other place was in the classroom. And I actually got like in trouble for reading too much sometimes in school. I probably read the most when I was in Zhuhai, and back like 4th through 8th is probably when I had the most reading time. Once I hit high school, I kind of fell off the reading train a little bit, which is unfortunate. But yeah, moving on. Alright, so what did I like in my books? So the types of stories that I was interested in were the main type of style of story would be like the basic quest story, like the Star Wars one, where the main character thinks they're a normal person, and then some event happens that drives them into the action. And they don't necessarily want to be doing this, but the event forces them to do it. And there's like the whole mentor character, and they learn throughout the thing. So anything that had followed that, the quest type storyline, I was always a fan of. I also like, for genre-wise, I like dystopian literature, which is like literature that's in a future time, future society where everything is supposed to be better, but there's like a fundamental flaw in it. And this book right here is Among the Hidden, one of the Shadow Children series, where it's illegal to have a third-born child in this society, and the main character is a third-born child, and it's a pretty great read. But that would be one example of dystopian lit. I also like character-wise characters who were leaders and people who tried to help the team, like Thomas from Maze Runner, where he was, and like problem-solving type people who see a problem and they want to fix it, not just for themselves but for everyone. They want to help everyone out. And I liked any books that had characters who were like that or similar to that. So I did not like nonfiction. Nonfiction was the one genre was not interested in at all. So I kind of stayed away from those books. And so from where I got all of this, for the most part, I read just paper books. I never really cared too much about whether it was hardcover or whatever. But then eventually later I got my Kindle, probably around like 8th grade. And my parents would sometimes read to me. That's what this third picture is supposed to be showing. I know it's a bike riding, but like it shows that it's a parent. But anyway, I don't remember exactly what they read. The two books that stand out. My dad read the Narnia, The Silver Chair, which is like the 4th book to us. And my mom read us The Hobbit and stuff like that. It wasn't super frequently, but every once in a while they'd start a book and read it with us. But yeah, that's where I got, those are the types of books that I liked to read. Alright, so this next one is just a quick little, go through of all, or not all, but a lot of the books that I've read through my adolescence. Alright, here we go. The first one, I'll grade them. First one, 39 Clues series, great series, you know. You got the Pathfinder series with Orson Scott Card, that's good. The Shadow Children series, which the first book of that is the Among the Brave I was talking about. You have the Divergent series, that was also really good. The Maze Runner series I really liked. I already mentioned that one already too. There's this other quick series called the Red Harley Quinn that was a little bit more whatever, but that was good. Of course, the Percy Jackson, both series. Love those series a lot. I think I read through those series twice each. The Giver series. Oh, and the Giver. Well, we'll get to that. The Inheritance Cycle, which is what that's called, but I used to call them the Aragon books. Really good. And the Artemis Fowl, I also remember enjoying quite a lot. That's just a quick overview of some of the books that I've read. I'm sure there's more, but these are the ones that came to my mind right away. So yeah. Alright, now that you've gotten an overview about what kind of books I was into and stuff, it is now time to move on to the third section. That one is, what is your favorite book? So I have two up here on the screen, as you can see. That's not because I have two favorite books, but because it kind of switched up. So Holes was probably my first favorite book, and if you haven't read Holes, I would recommend it. It's super easy read. But the main storyline is it follows. There's actually kind of like 3 stories that kind of like all intertwine at the end. So basically, this kid who has the worst luck ever, he's sent to this camp for kids, like a correctional type camp, I guess. And all they do all day, they're in the middle of a desert, dried up lake, and they're just digging holes for I don't even know if it's I don't remember if it's the summer or whatever. And I just really remember relating to Stanley and Zero a little bit, who's another character who befriends Stanley in this book. I just remember being like really intrigued by just how far this guy would go. He like walked through the desert to find his friend and stuff like that. But then I read the book The Giver, and that's probably my favorite book to this day. Um, Mostly because I kind of fell off reading. I'm getting a little bit back into it. Um, I'm getting ahead of myself. But yeah, Giver is probably my favorite book. If you haven't read The Giver, you have to because. But the basic plot of this book is at the very beginning they have a coming of age ceremony. I forget even what it's called. It's actually been a few years since I've read the book the last time. But when they turn 12, they get assigned their job for life. And the main character, Jonas, he gets picked to be the new receiver, which basically he goes to see this old man who's the cover is trying to picture the old man who's used to be the receiver, but he's getting old. And what he did is he held on to the memories of society. Um, in this society, it's a dystopian novel as well. But in this society, everyone's the same. They don't even see color, and it's kind of just like conformity kind of idea. But what the receiver's job is to do is to hold on and possess all the memories. So any decisions that need to be made usually take advice from the giver. And the goal of this is to eliminate human suffering, but it makes it kind of like a bland life. And I just really remember um, just feeling Jonas's pain for the community. He's like, um, when he didn't really necessarily agree that these should be hidden. He wanted everyone to know what this is like to be a part of human experience. And this book kind of made me realize that you can take even color itself for granted sometimes. And just through his struggles, I was able to get a greater appreciation for my life and stuff like that. And that book has just really resonated with me throughout my life. I really like this one. And there is actually three other books in the series that I didn't know about until like a few years after I read the book the first time. And they're pretty good too. They're not super directly related to The Giver at all until like the last book. Um, but it's definitely the series itself is pretty solid as well. The Giver being the first and Sun being the last and the two best. And then you have Gathering Blue and Messenger in the middle, and they're okay. But the other two, the finale and the beginning, I really, really liked. But yeah, so that was probably my favorite book. That's, yeah. So I was The Giver. All right, so that brings us full circle to today. How are we doing on time? No, just kidding. Um, So this final section is, as you can see, me as a reader today. What am I like? So I mentioned previously that I kind of fell off reading once I headed into high school, and especially the second half of high school, which I didn't say this previously, but the second half of high school, junior senior year, I was in Chengdu, China, which was a whole other place. And I didn't really do much reading there or last year, but I just last Christmas I kind of got back into reading. My older brother's super into reading, and so he recommended this book to me over Christmas break that we were all spending together as a family in Thailand. And that book was A Separate Piece. I think the author's T.S. Eliot, and that book is it takes place in like a boarding school during the one of the world wars. I forget exactly which one, and it followed this kid and his friendship. And that one I thought was pretty cool, and like because of that I'm like, what, man, why did I stop reading? Because it's actually like really nice to be able to sit down and just look at a book. And so, but after that vacation, I didn't really get any other books for myself. But then one day I was down in downtown Mansfield for some reason, near like the carousel and stuff. And I went into this thrift store type thing and they had some books. And so I found one that looked kind of interesting. It was called 10% Happier by Dan Harris. And that one, surprisingly, was actually a nonfiction book, and I did not totally hate it. So that was kind of cool. I mean, I'm slowly growing to appreciate nonfiction. That wouldn't be considered an adolescent lit book, I don't think, though. But anyway, and now today I'm trying to start reading every night. You know, before I go to bed, like the last hour, I'm trying to do. Don't do it every day. I'm trying though. Currently, I'm reading 1984, which I'm surprised I haven't read because my family talks about that book all the time. But 1984, and it's pretty good so far. I'm about like a third of the way through. Really liking it. And that's another dystopian lit novel. And it's kind of similar to Fahrenheit 451 if you've read that. Um, and then after that, I'm probably gonna stick with the same type of book and read Brave New World, because I've also gotten a lot of recommends for that book by my fam. Alright guys, so that brings us to the end. Thank you guys for sticking through this presentation. If you watched it, if you didn't, whatever. Just want to say a few last things about this class and specifically. I just want to say that I'm pretty excited to start reading some of these novels. They seem like they're going to be pretty good. I have read The Outsiders already, but I don't mind reading it again because I remember that book being pretty good as well. Yeah, stay gold.